All right, everybody. I want you to grab a piece of paper and a pencil, and I want you to write down this special recipe we have for you this week. Listen, you want to get a 3 cup pot. You want to put 2 cups of water in it. You got to place the water in the pot. Just make sure that it's a 3 cup pot because there could be boiling over. Then I want you to put a cup of ice cubes in that pot. Turn the burner on high, as high as it goes. But listen, after you do that, you cannot watch the pot because this will take forever if you watch the pot. But you can't leave it unattended or you will literally burn your house down. Okay? So you have to find a happy medium in there and I hope that you do. You bring that water to a boil. Okay? Once it's boiling, here it's important. Remove it from the burner. Then turn your burner off. After you turn the burner off, you use that water immediately, or you're going to have to redo every one of these steps. Rudy, your thoughts?
Yes, chef.
Was hoping for that was steaming.
Uh,
It's the Roller of the Rural Vintage Baseball Podcast, talking vintage baseball players from coast, coast, border, and border. Border and border, border to border. Run for the border. Great episode this week. We're going to the great state of Missouri. Talk to the gentleman from the Lafayette Square Cyclone Vintage Baseball Club. And then we'll be interviewing one-on-one later on with the newest? What is the newest? The new captain of the Bay City, Michigan Independence, Graham Parker. So full show, good times. And we're going to get right to it. But first, let me bring in my co-host, Rudy Swampbox Frias. Rudy, how's your week gone?
oh, it's been quite the week, hasn't it? Whew,
I don't know.
just
Has it?
Monday. It's
Oh,
yeah.
I mean the week from, you know what I mean.
No,
So
yeah, been
I,
going. You know what I'm looking forward to, and we're gonna get into it later, but I'm looking forward to Saturday. So that's what's motivating me, getting me out of the bed.
uh, absolutely. I didn't get out of bed for the last 3 days because on Friday, for the first time in 26 years of delivering beer, I had to go home early due to illness. I've sure I miss days like everybody else misses days. Everybody misses days. I get sick days, but I've never gone to work and then had to stop and come back home. And I stayed in bed until yesterday, and uh, and I'm just getting back to feeling normal. So that was a pleasant loss of a weekend. I didn't accomplish a damn thing, but usually you're the one that's sick. So
Thanks. Yeah.
just disappointed there. Hey, before we bring in the two gentlemen here from Lafayette, let's get a couple of things off of our to-do list. Don't forget, if you want a T-shirt of the podcast, we're not. There's no deadline. There's no big store. There's no big la any of this. The post is pinned at the top of the Facebook group page or the Facebook group because we got like I don't understand Facebook's a lot. We have 2 pages on Facebook. One we had to, and one the group that's got over 600 people in it. At the top of that one is a pinned post of a T-shirt you can get and with the instructions on it. If you want a T-shirt and you want to find that, just contact me like you do for everything else. I'll send it your way. Don't worry about it. Also, don't forget to check out all of our social media stuff and our Twitters because, listen, if you check this stuff out, then we get, it all works in rankings of all these polls and blah, 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 blah. I really feel like I'm glad handing everybody, Rudy. Am I running for office? What's going on?
Hey man, let's start kissing some babies. All right.
we will kiss your babies this Saturday at in Flat Rock, Michigan. Rudy's got to play, but I'm calling some games. Rudy's calling some games he's not playing in, and it should be a good time. 64 and partly cloudy so far as we speak. Uh, Rudy, after we bring in Graham Parker and we get halfway through that, he doesn't know this, but Michael Jarema's coming in at, and we're going to have the first ever nerd off. So that's prepared and ready to go. So I
All
just wanted
right.
to be aware of that.
I will prepare.
Okay. And without further ado, let's bring in from the Lafayette Square Cyclones Vintage Baseball Club in St. Louis, Missouri. We have Chris Bookworm Duggan and Ross Atlas Gallentine, the co-captains. How you gentlemen doing this evening?
I'm good. How about yourself?
We are ready for vintage baseball. You guys have already played vintage baseball, am I correct? Did you play the Belleville Stags already?
Yeah, that's correct. We opened our season last weekend with two games in Belleville at Moose Meadow, and as we were discussing earlier, it was ideal weather for vintage baseball. About 50 and really windy. The ball stings a little bit this time of the year, and even more so when it's those kind of conditions.
That and we hadn't had any practice yet, so we're just coming in cold to the cold.
Wow.
You would have practiced in colder. Yeah, the ball stings all the time. I don't know. Is it just me? I got meaty hands, and the ball always stings. It never matters the weather or anything. It always feels the same. I guess I'm kind of immune to it. Sitting
There are
in a
degrees
chair
of,
watching a game.
degrees of stingage, I would say, and it's particularly high. This same location every year that we have the other organizations in the area have something called a goodwill game, which is essentially a big pickup game, and generally the Stags will host the one in the spring. We do one in the fall too to close the season, and they made three attempts at this location to do that. Two times it was too rainy and swampy there, and then a third time rainy and swampy and almost freezing. So this we were shocked and delighted that we got to play it all last weekend, frankly.
Yeah, we've had really bad luck with the weather this spring. Like I was saying earlier, yeah, it's probably about 10 degrees cooler than it normally is here on the 1st of May.
Yeah. Ross, you're a member of the St. Louis Baseball Historical Society. Is that correct?
Oh, I mean, we both are, yeah.
Oh, you're the vice president. Chris, what office do you hold?
I'm the president.
President, vice president, co-captains of Lafayette. Okay, so it all comes together and works out here.
Yeah, this is the brain trust right here.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. Chris came up to me. He asked me at the scheduling meeting last November, "Do you want to be the vice president?" And I said yes. But to be honest, I don't even know what I do.
Right.
That's
So
right.
what that
Rudy
means at
doesn't know
that
what
point
he
is
does.
we have an uncontested election, and then you're vice presidents.
Yeah. I'm right in that same boat, Barrel. You're right. No idea. I'm just here to look pretty.
Yeah, Rudy doesn't know what he does here either. Sometimes I don't know either. Well, gentlemen, you're obviously friends. I don't know how far back your club goes. So, Chris, could you start us off by telling us the origin of the club, and if there's any history?
Sure. Yeah. The Greater St. Louis Baseball Historical Society is our umbrella organization, and it was founded in 2002. And it was assembled from a group of guys who played another club, I think in Washington, Missouri, but I'm not positive on that. And they formed a club which came to be known as the St. Louis Perfectos, and they played for a number of years. The Perfectos, that was actually the name of the St. Louis Cardinals before they were the Cardinals. It was their name for a single year, before which they were the Brown Stockings. But anyway. I joined the club. I joined the Perfectos in 2008, and came in with an infusion of players, and by the end of that season, it was somewhat clear that we had, we'd have like 18 people sign up for a home game, and we thought, do a little bit of recruiting, we could form another club, and that club was the Lafayette Square Cyclone Baseball Club, which had its first season in 2009. And we shared the field at Lafayette Park in St. Louis. Happens to be the first place where organized baseball was played in St. Louis, so nice bit of history there. And in fact, the Lafayette Square Cyclone Baseball Club was an actual club. It was the first organized baseball team in St. Louis. So some nice bits of symmetry, and that's where they played as well. So so then I was really just a player at that point, and as we went, we've accumulated different people, and then every year we would do this festival at Francis Park, which is nearby, also in South St. Louis, and this one particular year. We met Ross, and he can tell the story about how he wound up joining the club.
Yeah, so picture it, 2012, September, in the lovely neighborhood park, Francis Park, in South St. Louis. I was there with my ex-girlfriend. We were at the art fair, and I saw these guys playing an interesting brand of baseball. Actually, is a funny thing is that the Cyclone were playing the local church softball team, so it was a very funny kind of mix of imagery there, with the vintage uniforms, and then these guys, with their T-shirts and shorts, with, I think St. Gabriel's, church logo on it. And so I, decided to watch, and I was, chatting it up with some of the Cyclone players, and just kind of crouched there on the third base side, sitting there. And one of the softball players hit a foul ball. So, I kind of ducked out of the way. And I think it was Chris that said, well, I just want to let you know that if you catch the ball, even as, a spectator on a, fly or a bound, you can get the hitter out. So I thought, oh, okay, that's pretty strange. Sure enough, about the next inning, Chris is at the plate, and Chris is left-handed, so he kind of dinks one over third base, and I just kind of lunge for it, and I get it. I throw it to the pitcher, and Chris is out, and Chris was a little bit upset with me, and I got the invite from that spot to play, and in my jeans and T-shirt, I got into at least I think one at bat, and I got on base, and the rest is history.
Let me ask you this. You said Chris was probably a little mad at you for that. Is he more mad at you because you got him out, or is he more mad at you because you referred to it as a dink?
Oh, well, I was thinking after I said dink, that was probably not a good, place of words. And I do regret that. So he's mad at me twice now.
I'm going to go ahead and say that it was not my best struck ball, really. But having said that, we are nothing if not keen evaluators of talent, and that humiliation initially aside, it really it has paid off to a much greater degree over time.
Chris, can you tell everybody the uniforms that you guys have gone with? Is that historically accurate? I know the concept is accurate for the times, but is the color scheme and the whole thing accurate for what it was?
Yeah, pretty much. The gentleman who was kind of spearheaded the creation of the club, guy named Rick Ray, whose nickname was Sting, Rick Sting Ray. He was a retired police detective for St. Louis Police Department, and also a really well-schooled historian of baseball in St. Louis, and he had done a wealth of research and found some illustrations that depicted the uniforms. So what we have is pretty close to what they had at that time. What we have on our chest plates is a kind of a symbol in the Lafayette Square neighborhood. It's kind of the shape of the finials on top of some of the fence posts. Thank you very much, Ross. I was just kicking myself for not having that on hand. And I'm not sure that they had that on the uniforms back then, but in every other way, it's pretty much what they had.
This is the hat that we wear. I think we have slightly different variations, but we call this one the outhouse over the moon version. As you can see, yeah, it really does look like an outhouse. But
Yeah, that's what it looks like to me.
yeah, yeah, I'm glad you.
There came a point where we couldn't find an embroiderer who could do that. So some of the subsequent C's on later hats look different. And so the original guys who have that, we call them the outhouse gang.
Yeah.
It's odd you say you couldn't find an embroiderer that could do that, because I feel like in the 1860s, that's the only design embroiderers could make, was an outhouse over a moon. So
Yeah.
It was a popular
how
design.
how
Yeah.
times have changed. Hey, Rudy, you were having a great conversation with the gentleman before we hit record, and we wanted to make sure that we touched on that. Do you want to go ahead and start that conversation again?
Well, no, yeah, we totally can, because we were getting into the starting vintage baseball at this time of year, and then you talked about your Belleville Stags game that you usually do, one in the spring and one in the fall. um let's talk about your schedule. Like, how many matches a season are you trying to, as co-captains, are you trying to put together for your club?
We generally try to shoot for a couple of dates a month. Um, and that's just kind of what we've arrived at. When we were younger, we played a lot more. And now we're kind of at that place where, well, we're trying to stave off burnout and injury at the same time. So that seems to be pretty much a happy medium.
Yeah, and it allows everybody to take adequate time for going on vacations during the summer. And in St. Louis, the heat can be just brutal.
I've heard
as much
that.
as the early season temperatures can be a little bit brutal and hard on the hands.
Yeah.
You're praying for that come around June in St. Louis.
I'm fascinated by the co-captainship. So, like, there's Chris rips this rocket down the line, and Ross.
Thank you for that visual.
Ross, like, kind of just throws his hand up to protect himself and catches the ball, and the next thing you know, he's on the team. When did this co-captainship form?
I'm not sure I was captain when that fateful day occurred. Just over time, different people in leadership, they cycle out, they move, they have kids, they do the other destructive things to vintage baseball careers, and then and then other people have to step up. And so I was one of those people, and then over time, of course, you identify the folks who are more passionate about the team and the game, and Ross was one of those people. So here we are.
Yeah, I'd say I'm really just a product of showing up for most of the games.
Yep. you're hired.
Yeah, they say in life, showing up is 50% of success. In vintage baseball, it's about 95%.
That's very true.
Right. Yeah.
I love it.
Well, you guys play in a beautiful state, so you guys probably have played at some wonderful venues. I know that there's been pictures of you playing at the St. Louis Arch, which has got to be actually kind of crazy. Chris, let's start with you. Where are some of your favorite places that you've had the opportunity to go take Lafayette to play?
I aside from our own field, which this is going to sound hokey, but I love playing at our field really as much as I like playing anywhere else. It's a beautiful setting. It was the first, I think, park in St. Louis.
Actually, I just read today and I don't know if this is correct, so check your sources. Apparently the first park west of the Mississippi River.
And
that's 18.
Like I said, it's got that great historical connection. But aside from that, the neighborhood is just, you're surrounded by this old Victorian architecture, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful setting to play baseball in. So, but aside from that, shameless plug. Probably my favorite place was, Matt Lurk with the Scoops has organized on a number of occasions several clubs going up and playing at Field of Dreams in Dyersville, Iowa, which was enormous fun. I mean, I just couldn't get enough of that.
I did Google it. Somebody said I should Google it in my head, and I did. It says Lafayette Park was set aside from the St. Louis Common in 1836 and dedicated in 1851 as one of the first public parks, and by far the largest of its era, is considered by many historians to be the oldest urban park west of the Mississippi. So ding, ding, ding. Correct answer there, Ross.
Right.
You are the man. Ross, you got any special events that the vintage baseball community in the St. Louis area puts on that you guys take part in every year?
Well, yeah, at our home park in Lafayette Square at Lafayette Park, we have the annual Barclay Festival, which takes place over a weekend, both Saturday and Sunday. And Saturday is actually in conjunction with, formerly it was a home tour, but due to the COVID-19 pandemic, they transitioned to a home garden tour. So there's a home garden tour on that Saturday. And there's also antique dealers, hawking their wares along two sides of the street on Park Avenue, which is our third base side, and then Mississippi, which if you hit one really far to left field, you might hit them, but I haven't seen it yet. So yeah, it's a great event. We got a lot of people walking around, to check out. And we usually have I think we've got about 5 games on this Saturday. Does that sound right, Chris?
Yeah, usually we'll do like 5 on it's the first weekend in June. We'll do 5 on Saturday.
June 3rd and the 4th this year. And also, I wanted to show, so I have the neighborhood newspaper, the Marquis, named after General Marquis de Lafayette of the Revolutionary War. As you can kind of see up here, we have a little bit of plug for an 1860s baseball game as part of the Spring Garden Tour. But yeah, they should be games. We're playing multiple games, not just the one.
Yeah, you don't play one game at a Spring Garden Tour. I think that's right. I think Akron, Ohio would agree with that, I believe.
Yeah, but hey, people are going to show up expecting one game, and you're going to give them more. I mean, come on.
I don't think so.
We constantly under promise and over deliver.
There you go.
We are talking with Chris Duggan and Ross Gallentine, the co-captains of the Lafayette Square Cyclone Vintage Baseball Club. Let me ask you this as a Major League Baseball fan, and Rudy is too on some level. How crazy is it to be in St. Louis? I mean, how crazy is the fan base there about the Cardinals?
On a scale from 1 to 10, they're right up there. Yeah, it's pretty rabid. This year so far has been really painful, but but I lived through the 70s, and that was a whole decade of painful. So
okay,
it's going to be okay.
Yeah, I like to think that April is going to be by far the worst month for the Cardinals, and they should turn it around. But you never know. You never know.
But are they one of those fan bases that stay strong and loud no matter how well the club is doing, or is it all dependent? I know it is on some level, but is it all dependent on how well they're doing?
I think that to some extent, of course, they continue showing up, and I think that's the biggest hallmark of the Cardinal fan base is they generally have pretty good crowds regardless. Having said that, they're almost always in the conversation during the DeWitt era of ownership of being in contention for the division most years. So there's something to come for. So, but yeah, I mean, it's hard to judge. I've never lived in another city, but I feel like, it's a pretty faithful fan base, and we're fiercely protective. We have St. Louis has sort of a perpetual sort of underdog complex going on, and damn it, the Cardinals are one of the great things that we have going for us. So we want that.
It does sound like you're a little bitter that the Rams left. Is the town over it, or does it still hurt?
I'm going to let Ross answer that question.
Oh, well, I'm actually not a pro football fan, so I didn't really care.
There you go.
Yeah.
By the time they left, I mean, the ownership clearly had no interest in putting a winning team on the field, and it was kind of like, just go, please.
Yeah, it's almost like an Oakland A's situation to some extent with the Rams ownership.
All right. Once again, it's the Lafayette Square Cyclone Vintage Baseball Club. You can find them on the Facebook. You can also find them. We're going to hear them say those magic words. It's going to be cyclonebaseball.wordpress.com. And they're about to say that the website's not up to date. Say it, guys.
That's correct. The website is not up to date.
Nobody's is. Every time we bring up a club,
in addition to being the organization president and the co-captain, I'm also the webmaster and have a full-time job and all of that stuff. So,
well, if you think about it, we're playing vintage baseball, of course, it's out of date.
Yeah.
Everything's out of date.
Send them a letter if you want to get in touch with them. Let's go back. There you go.
No, and generally we do a better job of posting things on the Facebook page as they're coming up, and and that is we're the only Lafayette Square Cyclone Baseball Club on Facebook, so give that a go.
Hey Ross, how did you get the nickname Atlas?
Well, I mean, I came up with it myself, but I was a geography major back in college. So I just thought it sounded like it'd be kind of a fun nickname.
That's a solid nickname, and I'm a little jealous. You got to pick out your nickname. Not so many people
do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not my experience, unfortunately. But hey, I don't. It happens. Hey, Chris, what was your moniker, Chris?
I am known as Bookworm, which you can probably tell just by looking at me where that one came from. But I was an English major. I'm a communications professional, and there it goes.
Yeah, learned gentleman.
Have you written a book, Chris?
I have written a book. Yes, I have not published a book.
Oh, you've written it and you haven't gotten it published, or you haven't attempted to get it published?
Well, I have of course attempted to get it published. Publishing is hard. I mean, it's more competitive than vintage baseball, that's for sure.
What was the book about? Can I ask?
It is a tenderly written coming of age story about a young artist in 1980s St. Louis.
True story?
No.
Oh. I don't know. I'm interested. Rudy, you like artsy stuff.
Yeah. Naturally. Way to connect those dots.
Yeah, so if anybody in your listener base has anybody in the publishing industry that sounded interesting to, feel free to look me up.
You know what? The funny thing about the vintage baseball community is there is somebody that has connections in that field. And I don't know who it is off the top of my head, but there's somebody for everything in the vintage baseball community. There's always a connection.
Yeah.
Always. It's amazing the things we come across down here.
Absolutely. And if there was only a podcast that would connect those individuals or get the message out, that
somebody should do that.
Yeah.
What a great idea, Rudy.
Thanks.
Oh, you're not all looks, you know that? Gentlemen, we want to thank you for stopping in. We really appreciate it. The Lafayette Square Cyclone Vintage Baseball Club from St. Louis, Missouri. You guys were great. We appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. For the managers out there who want to make the trip out to see you, I'm assuming Facebook would be the easiest way to get in touch with you to try and schedule some matches.
Yeah, definitely. We have we use Messenger on that. I can also just shout out my email address. It is cdug65@yahoo.com.
There you go. That's fantastic, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. I have seen your uniform at the Ohio Cup, and always remark that it is sharp, and I like it, and it is really nice to meet you guys. Thank you so much.
Oh,
We
thank you.
appreciate you having us.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
All right, Rudy. Off to a great start. Boy, those guys, gentlemen. That's the definition of gentleman right there.
The wild thing is I have seen that uniform for years at the Ohio Cup and always been like, what team is that? Who are they? And it's so nice to meet them and finally put like some faces and names together to the club, and they're fantastic.
This is your roller out the barrel break. Monday, February 23rd, 1879. I'm Jonathan McLean. State line, Havana. The National Championship of Cuba was played this past month. Competing were the Havana, Almendares, and the Matanzas Baseball Club. Baseball has been rising in popularity as many see the game as an alternative to bullfighting, which was forced on them by the Spanish. Baseball represents freedom from Spain to the Cubans, and that certainly seems to be a popular sentiment among other people among Spanish occupation. The first game between the Havanas and the Matanzas was a close affair. The Havanas defeated the Matanzas 5 years earlier by a score of 51-9, and were hopeful to follow that up with another victory. They started strong with a 10-run third inning, but the Matanzas, whose name means slaughter or killings, put up 8 runs in the fifth to pull to within 4 tallies. The Havanas, however, would not look back and took the first game by a final score of 34-26. On February 2nd, 5,000 Cubans, several hundred being ladies, came to see the Havanas take on the Almendares Baseball Club. Founded only a year earlier, the Almendares are very much seen as the chief rival to the Havanas. The team from the capital would look to their player manager in Esteban Bayan for guidance. Bayan, who had 3 home runs in that 1874 game against the Matanzas, was born in Cuba but played for the Unions of Mauritania, the Troy Haymakers, and the Mutuals between 1868 and 1873. He is considered the first Latin American-born ballist to play professional baseball in the U.S. Steve, as he is known by some, would contribute 2 runs as the Havanas became the Cuban national champions with an 18-10 victory. I'm Jonathan McLean, and this has been your Roller Out the Barrel News Break.
All right, Jonathan McLean with this week's news break. That reminds me, coming up this Saturday at the Flat Rock Invitational, Rudy Frias and I are being joined by Jeff Kozlowski. Cougar is joining the play call team this weekend. So when Rudy's in the field, Cougar's in the seat. So that'll be great. And hopefully I have stepped up my game enough to match his brilliance.
Doubtful.
We will find out.
Yeah, doubtful. We both.
Yeah, I know. Old dog, new tricks.
Yeah.
Hey, did you want to bring in our guest?
Yeah, absolutely. Here comes Graham.
Graham Parker.
Hey, what's going on?
Oh, you sound like you're whispering. It sounds to us like what's that? ASMR stuff?
I haven't heard a peep out of him.
I heard him. He just sounded very soft spoken.
That's fascinating. I have a microphone. I don't know why it's not working.
Okay, wait a second. Sounds a little bit.
Yeah, well, I'm recording and I ain't hearing jack nothing.
You haven't heard him?
It's so faint. Everybody, try to listen to Graham.
Hold on.
Woo! Nothing.
There it is.
Oh.
What?
Does it sound any better?
There it is.
Oh, there it is.
You gotta
What'd you do wrong?
plug it in.
What'd you do?
I just switched
Oh,
to
it's
it.
gone again.
What? Hold on.
Okay.
Oh, holding on.
We'll vamp.
I'll just do it this way.
Oh, there he is.
Fuck it, we'll do it
Wow.
live.
Oh, this is a kid show, sir. That's $1 in the swear jar. $1.
Can I prepay and give you 5?
Then know it. Joining the show, newest captain of the Bay City Independents, not new to the team though, Graham Parker. Graham, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. Rudy, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Did you
Thanks
want to
for
ask Graham how he's doing?
Hey, Graham, how's it going?
It's all right.
All
Thanks
right.
for asking. I appreciate you.
This is great. Graham, we do have an hour to talk with you, and we're going to use every second of it. But I just want to warn you of something that's going to happen. I'm going to give you the advantage. Michael Jarema is going to join us.
Oh,
Okay.
boy.
He's joining us for the first ever Roll Around the Barrel Nerd Off.
Oh, God.
Okay. So it's only going to last a couple of minutes. He doesn't know why he's coming in. So I just want you to think about that.
Okay.
But that's happening. So Rudy, when he joins the room, we can just shoehorn him right in and get that sucker
Yes.
going.
I'm excited.
Love it.
Graham, tell us, let's go ahead and just talk about your history with the Bay City Club right now. When did you join the team, and how did you come across vintage baseball?
So I joined the team, I believe it was July of 2018. It was a Thursday night game against Saginaw on Ojibwa Island when they were still allowed to play there. I was working at a moving company in Saginaw at the time, and my brother had randomly called me up mid-afternoon, and he goes, "What are you doing at like 5:30?" I don't know, going home. Like, what does anyone do on a Thursday at 5:30? He goes, "No, show up at Ojibwe. I have a uniform for you. I'm going to get you into this." So they put me out in right field, and everybody from Saginaw hit right at me. I did not catch a ball with my hands. I left with bruises on my stomach from a couple of the line drives hit at me. Thank you, Ink. And I fell in love with it. I caught the bug right then and there, and I've been playing ever since.
Now, Thursday at 5:30 in Saginaw on Ojibwe Island, actually two things do happen. It's vintage baseball, and there's also meth deals at the picnic table in center field under the willow tree. So,
Okay.
you know this. I mean, so you joined the team with your brother. You definitely infused a much needed, I don't think that's going too far for me to say for any vintage baseball club, a much needed youth movement to take away some of those old legs from having to do so much. Old legs don't like to do much. And so it's nice when a vintage baseball team can bring in some youth so they don't have to worry about the future as much, because sometimes you get a little thing where players start aging out and there's no future, and then a folding happens or a very small schedule happens, and you're sharing and doing all of that stuff. You somewhat recently were named captain of the Bay City Independents. How did that come to be?
So Silverback, the previous captain, my predecessor, he and I had kind of had some discussions. I think it was the end of last summer on whether or not I was gonna, whether or not I'd be interested. And he may have even thought that, or, started having thoughts of that before. Because for the last 4 years,